Hello, everybody. It's Heather with the Leadership at Heart podcast. And today I'm very excited to speak with Kurtis Strauel. He is someone who is in HR, really focusing on employee experience, trying to figure out how to make his organization and the world better generally for employees. And so as soon as I found out about him, I knew I had to have him on. So welcome, Kurtis.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
So tell everybody like kind of where you are right now in your leadership journey.
Sure. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Kurtis Strauel. I am the Senior Director of Human Resources for Mark Taylor Residential, based here in lovely Scottsdale, Arizona, and have been with Mark Taylor for 3 years. But really, have been on the journey of HR for over 30 years and leadership for 20 plus. I know I relatively look young, but I have a lot of experience in this field. But really, continuing like everybody else, continuing to grow and to develop as a leader, and focused on being better than I was yesterday, and on that aspect from a leadership potential. But truly, what I loved about being invited to be on here today was leading from the heart, right? When you think about the things that really drive people, it's showing that you care, right? And that you create that connection with people, and they give you that opportunity to lead them. But I think you have to create that investment in those folks. And obviously, those connections help to ensure that you can accomplish the things that you want as a leader, and you get the unique opportunity to lead. But you've always got to be focused about caring for the individual, because to me, it's always about people. Your family, your coworkers, people are front and center in everything that we do.
I love that. And it's interesting because oftentimes not everybody thinks that when they think of HR. And
Right.
so I'm curious to know, what you think of, or have you seen kind of an evolution as it relates to this and kind of the focus? Oftentimes people think HR is not the friend, and that they're the enemy, that they're not looking out for the employee, right? That they're looking out for the corporation, that this is the biggest qualm you hear. I don't believe that because, of course, I've worked with HR. I partner with HR in everything I do in my consulting and training practice too. So I understand that you all are, very heart centered. You do, and you start off in many ways. You start off really, really, really focused on people, and sometimes you're able to keep that focus, but sometimes there are distractions, and there are things that do kind of you become priority that maybe take over the thing you really want to be getting done. And so I'm curious to know what you've seen in that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to remember when you think of human resources, it's all about the human component of it. I think there's always that challenge, right? Because we defend both the organization and in employees. But I think when you stay people centric in what you do, I think it's easy to do that. Sometimes it's tough decisions, but I think the more that you have clearly defined handbooks, the more that you have policies and you have think tanks that allow people to engage in the process, to be part of the process, then you design programs that remain focused on people. I think when you have technology coming too, you think about like AI and all of those things that are coming, is that tool will enhance the role of employees within organizations, right? It may change someone who is now, data entry to a data analyst. So it gives them opportunities to grow. But I truly think that, when you're at an organization and your leader, and that's what I'm blessed with here at Mark Taylor, is our CEO is very people centric, right? It's all about the people, because when you think about what we do, which is to manage these incredible property management, these apartments, residents, we get to put people in their home. But no matter when you think about it, is their buildings. But what makes them special, what makes them home, is our people. And so the more we stay grounded in taking care of our people, it takes care of our future residents and takes care of our clients. But I think everything that we try to design and do is all around people. So we want to hire that great talent. We want to grow that talent by investing in them through, learning and development platforms, and then ultimately help them continue to be engaged through listening to their voice. I think that's really critical. And then solving, because our employees have really great ideas. And I think the more you listen and the more you act. So you said, we heard you, we engage. It keeps us working together as that partnership. And you're right. Sometimes HR has to make those tough decisions to protect the organization. But I think that no matter when you make those decisions, whether that's, someone who's going through performance management or having to leave the business, you do it with respect and dignity at all times. And you do it very transparently and having engaging conversations. But I think always in what I do is, how would I want my family to be treated? How would I want to be treated? So I try to keep that top and center as I think about our team and what we deliver to the business. And that is to ensure that everybody has a great employee experience from hire to retire. And I think sometimes it creates the alumni experience where people leave an organization and they come back, because everybody has to test the water, see if the grass is greener, if you will. But again, if you stay focused and grounded in people and respect and dignity, then people have the opportunity to leave. And then I think you welcome them back and ask them to share their experiences and learn from them of what we could do better to, again, keep us always focused on the key thing, which is people.
Mm. I'm curious to know, because being in HR for 30 years, like what maybe some of your biggest challenges as it relates to having this human-centric approach be at the top of the organization. So continuing to like push this approach upward when sometimes what I have found, because as a consultant to HR is like I work with, I may start with a CEO or a COO. They then align me with HR, and then sometimes it just continues to push down further. And I know you know what I'm talking about. How do you continue to elevate it up to the C-suite level?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always a challenge, right? Right. I mean, you have to get people and performance to thrive together to drive bottom line results, of any organization, because that's what you're here to do, right? Drive results for your shareholders. But I think you've got to continue to elevate and reinforce, right? That people are the things that make us special. They're the things that drive the outcomes of the business. And the more that your people are engaged and informed, it continues to do that. So I think there's always that delicate balance of pushing up and pushing down. And I think sometimes, when you look at organizations that maybe aren't achieving where they need to be achieving, I think it's a lot of times because they lost their focus, right? And you lose your focus on your people. I mean, people are incredible in terms of their ideas, their thought processes, what they bring day in and day out. But you have to create that environment for them to be able to share, to be able to feel like they can challenge the process. Because the more you have that open dialogue and that open conversation, I think it creates that win-win for your customers, and it creates the win for the organization and your shareholders. But you have to create the safe space too, right? And people want to feel like if I come in and say, hey, this isn't going well, that I'm listening from not just to react, but I'm listening from a place of caring and understanding. So I think you have to create that. And I think that goes back to really it's the culture of any organization. And the culture is, it is built, and you've got to continue to work on it and continue to refine it and continue to create that. And that's why I think the more you listen to and you take advantage of surveys, pulse surveys, employee engagement surveys, you listen to the heart of your people, and they do great things for your organization. And you still have to delicately balance all of those other factors that go in there. But I think at the end of the day, people, even myself included, you want to show up, you want to do the best that you can do, but we're all going to make mistakes. I think those mistakes create the opportunity for learning, and then people feel good about it and they continue to drive forward and create great results.
So I am curious to know where your drive to be focusing on people like you do, like having such a focused heart, like where does that stem from? Does that go way back? Did you see that at something when you were younger? I'm just curious to know where it stems from.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I think it obviously goes back to my family. My dad was my inspiration, and I lost him at a very young age, but I think the kindness in which he interacted with people always resonated with me. And I think that I look at my mom as well too. So I'll tell you a kind of funny story. Back in second grade, when I still lived here in the Phoenix area before I moved to a different town in Arizona, I almost didn't pass the second grade because I couldn't skip and I couldn't read. And yeah, I just wasn't a good reader and I wasn't a good skipper. So when you think about that, I don't know. I mean, I'm older, so that tells you maybe how they evaluated students back then. But I think my mom worked full time, my dad worked full time, and my mom spending the summers helping me read and I guess helping me skip. But I think creating that environment where it's always about our family. Family's always been first to me. There's always challenges in family, but I think core to who I am are, I've got two wonderful kids, I've got a great wife, relatives, but I think family and caring for them and caring for people and individuals. Sometimes the world can be a rough place, but I think the more we demonstrate compassion and caring for others, it helps, right? And I think that's what I want to be known for. Is I may never achieve the things that I fully thought I would or have the titles that I thought, but creating an environment where the team that I have achieves their dreams and their ambitions and knows that they're cared for and they're seen and they're heard, I think to me is success. It makes me feel rich in my heart because I know there's a lot of things to work on. But I think it all stems from how I was raised and parents that, encourage me to be kind to others and accept the differences in others and embrace others. And I think that lived on as I've gotten older. And hopefully I pass that on to my kids to say, let's be good, citizens, good humans, and take care of all those around us.
So I am curious to know when I say when I say leadership with heart, how would you define leadership with heart?
Yeah, I think when I think of leadership part, great question, right? Is I kind of think of it as truly caring for others. And let me explain it this way. I think it is there's an old acronym that in the book, MICE, MICE squared. And I think when I think of leadership part is modeling the way. I'll go through all the letters of MICE, but model the way, is follow the values and the principles that I think are important, but I'm that leader. I walk that walk. I think it's inspiring a shared vision. So you connect the day to day to where we want to go long term is an organization or as a task. So people feel inspired by that. I think C, challenge, right? Challenge the process, challenge the status quo. I think the more that people feel that they're empowered to challenge, the more we can remove those barriers to success and go achieve great results. I think enable others or empower others. You got to remove those barriers that are preventing them from achieving great things. And then I think the last part of it is much like leadership with heart, is encouraging the heart. You have to provide feedback. Sometimes that's tough feedback. But I think at the end of the day, it's about recognition. It's about reward. It's about those thank you things. So when I think about leadership from the heart and I think about, all of those type of things, I think of that acronym
Mm.
because truly to me, that is what, when I drive from my heart and I try to capture employees' hearts to achieve great things, it's all those things that I mentioned in that MICE squared acronym. But I think at the end of the day is it's truly, creating that vision, encouraging people along the way because no one remembers perfect, right? If you do it perfectly,
Oh yeah.
no one remembers it.
Mm.
But what they remember is that you walked through that with them. You were there with them through the goods and the bads and the roughs and things like that, and you weathered the storm because leadership isn't about, getting it always right. It's about making those mistakes, learning from those mistakes, and then also truly, I think it's what we talked about before we started, which is patience and perseverance. Because some days you're going to lay 4 stones in the pathway, and 5 are going to be gone by the time you come back the next day. But that's what creates that opportunity to learn and to develop, and encourages you to grow.
So can you think of a specific time when maybe you were not leading with heart? Like, can you think of a specific story that you could share with the listeners when you just weren't that best version of yourself? And what did it look like specifically? And then what did you do to kind of see your way through it and maybe out of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think those type of stories resonate, right? Because you look back on them and you think, wow, I could have done that differently. And I think I joined an organization after leaving a larger organization, much smaller organization, and I stepped into a bigger role. And I came in and I focused more on execution or results, if you will. And I didn't take the time to build the connections that I should have, with those employees. And so we were able to achieve things, but not really there. We lost people because of turnover and different things like that. But I think what it did is show me that I needed to pause. I needed to step back and to truly fully understand, what the challenges were of the team. So I really had to listen. I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier, which is the pressure from the organization of we've got to achieve these things, we've got to achieve those things. And so it changed me a little bit of I proceeded in that direction versus first taking the time to really understand the core of the people, connect with the people. So you go on a listening tour to kind of understand what are the challenges of this organization? What are the challenges of my own team and their struggles to be able to achieve the things that they aspire to achieve? And I think when I took the time to pause and say, hey, I need to really go and listen and understand this organization, understand the people, and then step back and solve versus trying to solve for this outcome when it was really this outcome that I needed to solve. I got there. But it was a humbling experience, right? To realize that I should have done it that way from the start, but sometimes you're under those pressures. You're under the pressures to, hey, we need you to do this, we need you to come in and do this, and you change a little bit of your style. I look back on the experience, it was a true growth experience for me because of the fact that I changed a little bit too much to the left versus the right. And when I came back to the core of who I was able to achieve better results from there. But I still look back on that experience and say, yeah, that's one where I don't want to repeat it. So I think when you think about joining organizations and you think about things like that, it's about finding, you know, an organization that's true to who you are, and your culture and your values and your beliefs. Because if you're driven by people and you come into an organization that's all about results and we don't care about the people, it's that disconnect and you won't be able to be as effective as you can from a leader, from a results perspective. So, and that's why I think when I, got the opportunity to join the organization I am, our CEO, John Carlson, is 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 so driven to make sure that our people remain focused. And I think it's from years of experience in this business. So he serves as a great mentor to say that we're always going to keep people front and center, and the results will take care of itself because we take care of people.
I love that. I am curious to know, like, do you ever see like a trigger, or was there a trigger that made you become more introspective about like how you needed to evolve and you needed to focus, become more people centric? And I mean, what I don't want it to sound like is that you can't be results focused or performance focused and people focused, because they do coexist. Because I mean, like you said, like the whole end goal is to make sure that your shareholders are getting receiving value, and in the end, that your stakeholders, which include employees, are all kind of locked in, receiving value, doing what they need, getting what they need. So I think it does exist together. But if we are balanced on one side or the other, imbalanced, I guess, doing too much of one, too much of the other, and we don't kind of keep both in check, it can become problematic. But was there like a trigger for you that made you go, huh, I'm over indexing, just some type of thing that was like you can think of that said, yep, it's time to kind of rebalance?
Yeah, I mean, I think, in that experience that I said, I think taking a look at sometimes like data, right? Taking a look at where my heart feels in there too, right? Because you want to lead with your head, think with your heart, all of those type of different things. I don't think that came out right, but you know what I meant. But I think at the end of the day, right, is when you have to balance it, I think you have to look at the results and you have to look at people, but I think you also have to look at the data. Sometimes taking data in as you make decisions can help you balance it. And I go back to the value of listening to employees through employee engagement surveys, poll surveys, and different things like that. Because they'll truly tell you when you're on mark, you see it in terms of your turnover data, your retention, your different things like that. But you see it in your results, right? If you're not achieving what you're achieving as an organization, I think you go back and you look at it. Our turnover is higher. So now you're bringing in new people to the organization, which isn't always bad, but you could be losing some of your cultural identity. You could be losing that institutional knowledge. So I think you have to really, balance emotion with data too, and look at that. But I think the more you seek out your employees' voices, they guide you to get to the best results possible because of the fact that they're closest to those things. And the more you listen, the more you hear and you say, hey, we need to do this. So one of the things that we did here as well too is have the SMART initiative, right? And I know when you think about SMART goals, specific, measurable, things like that, but having employees tell us what are the more efficient ways to do things, what are the better ways to do things, because those go back to those barriers that are in place that could be causing those pain points for employees, those frustrations, but they get the opportunity to solve, they get the opportunity to make us better as an organization through their thoughts and ideas. And sometimes I think from a leadership perspective, you think, I think I know what's best, but at the end of the day, it's your people. Your people will guide you on that journey. And you have to create that environment, right? You have to be able to, hire those folks. You have to create a career path for them. You have to invest in them, grow them. You have to listen to them, and then help them through that employee journey, if you will. Again, hire to retire, take care of them with great benefits and grow from a financial perspective, because the more that people come to work and they feel valued, again, they feel heard, they feel
Mhm.
seen. I think those are the things that people want. Those are the kind of stickiness that organizations need to create to be able to create that environment that drives great results.
Is there something that you wish, you either would have told your 20-year-old self or someone else would have told you when you were in the early 20s about like workplace culture or leadership? Is there something that you like now you'd be like, oh, and I want to make sure I tell everybody? What would be that? What would that be?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of lessons. If I could go back and say, I'd say read more, Curtis, right? I didn't read as much as I should have, and that probably started back in second grade. Now I read a lot. I, there's a lot of things. I think I would go back and tell myself patience, right? Ability, all of those type of things. But I think about when I go back is, yeah, that's a really, really good question. Those two things I can think about, but I think I would just tell myself that take care of, I don't know. I think that's a really great question. And it's really making me think because I think at the end of the day, I think I would just stay true to what it is just remember to take care of people and
Hmm.
you'll take care of it, everything else, but always treat people with, dignity and respect and care about them and be emotionally invested in them and understand them because I think that there are times that we all show up to work and we're not our best, right? And the more you create that connection with your people and your team, you can help them, right? Because the biggest cheerleaders for any employee are each other, right? We're going to have those rough days. And the more that we create that space of connecting with people, we pull each other up, we dust each other off, and we say, let's go back at it, right? And we create the connection. So
Hmm.
I don't know. I feel the emotion in my response. I'm not sure it's very well articulated, but I think I think I'm blessed to always realize that people are the center of everything. And, maybe I don't have as much money or I don't have as much of that, but when I think about the people that I have around me, that's what matters.
Hmm.
The people and I get the opportunity to bring people to this great organization. And I've had the opportunity to other organizations, but I think as long as you stay focused in people and lead with your heart and care about people, it'll all take care of itself.
Beautiful. Well, hey, I think you ended this on a
Okay.
perfect note. You answered it. I told you I had no particular way I wanted you to answer, and I do think for those who
Yeah.
are listening right now, right, just kind of meditate a little bit about what Curtis was talking about. That in the end, everything starts and stops with people, and how we treat them and how they feel in our presence and after we interact with them, and what they see for themselves, their own vision, their future, based upon how we interact with them, can change everything. And so I appreciate you imparting those last sentiments and the emotion, which is a huge part of us being a human. So I appreciate that, Curtis. Thanks for coming on here and giving us that extra oomph we needed to get through the week too.
Great. Glad to do it. I
And
could talk about people all day. So
yes, yes, me too. I know it's awesome. Thank you, everybody, too, for listening to my conversation with Curtis. If you think it was something that you think is valuable, obviously do share it far and wide. It makes a huge difference. And thanks for listening to the Leadership at Heart podcast. Be well.